Galaxy Records then made the compilation album that gives Zimbabwe the term urban grooves.
Yes. We had to try to figure out what we call the compilation, because now I'm stuck with, I was working tirelessly. I was working pretty much from 7 o'clock to midnight, doing my daytime job until about 6 ish, when I was doing the advertising stuff. And even on times when I didn't have any advertising stuff, I'd be working on some Galaxy stuff. And after hours, I would be recording artists. But now I wasn't just recording one, I was recording many. And each one of these artists I was recording, I was giving them contracts. And the contract was quite simple. It simply said, we will put in all the money you need to get your product or your record made. So we will pay for the studio time. After paying for the studio time, we'll pay for the music videos if we decide to make a video. For you to make a video, you had to sell a certain threshold. Okay, so you had to sell so many to get to the point where you could afford to do a video. And after we've done that, we will pay all the money for that. We'll pay the money for the promotion, the sleeves, the free CDs that you give to the DJs and the journalists. We will finance all of that, and you will walk away at the end of it with a product. When that product makes money, you will get all that money together. We'll add up all the money that we've spent. We take back all that money that we've spent. So we recoup. We put that aside. Any of the profit, you get a percentage of that. So every single artist that came through the studio that I decided to work with got that deal. And it was a fair deal, I felt.
So why were artists complaining about this contract? Because you hear a lot of artists say, Delani's contract, Delani's contract, right? But you look back, you look at the industry now, it's literally a structureless industry.
Yeah.
And it delves back to that era where people were literally saying no to structure.
I think it was a pure aspect of lack of education about how the industry works. You must appreciate, a lot of us are young people. We didn't go to business school to learn how does a business product work. Okay. And a lot of people don't seem to think of the music industry or the music CD or the music recording as a product. Okay. So, simple example. If you and I decide to go into bread manufacturing, the first thing we have to do is figure out what's the cost of flour, what's the cost of water, what's the cost of sugar, salt, etc., and the ovens. We take that money, we raise it. Then we go and buy all the ingredients that make the bread. When we have made the bread, we sell the bread, then we make a profit. We make the money back, okay? When we make the money back, the first thing that we do is take out the money that we initially put to buy the equipment. Right. The music industry works exactly the same way. The product is the CD that Plexidas creates, that Roy and Royce creates, that Maskiri creates, that Stana creates. That's the product. You put in money to make the video, to make the covers, to make the actual CD, to make the cassettes, to make his music videos, to make him look nice in that music videos. Okay? You put in that money. When you put in that money, you sell his CDs or his downloads. When you've sold them, you get all that money back. You then say, we spent so much to get here. We take that out first.
We're getting our money back.
Whatever is left is what we share. Now, what was a challenge is that because people thought about it from an American perspective where it's about throwing money in the music video and you're always looking rich and you're always looking glamorous and you're always the superstar, some people felt that my contract was a bit tough, yet it was basically explaining that. And because if you don't have that, I think that knowledge or even somebody to advise you that this is how it works. And I'm not saying that all of them got it. I'm also saying that some of them didn't get it. So I had a very structured contract. I had borrowed that template from the Nebula Boss days when I was working for Nebula's Boss Records. I'd borrowed that template from the contract that I had been given, from Sony, that I had been given by Jessica Mutaong and her husband's contracts that I'd literally been given. So I took a lot of those elements plus things that I'd already seen. And then I tried to adapt what would work and what didn't work, because some of those things don't work in our environment. So I took things out and I added certain things in and tried to make it and tailor it. An average recording contract will give you anything between 8 and 14%. 8 and 14% of profit. So after we've taken all our money, you're going to get 8 to 14% of the profit. Okay. I was offering 20 because I felt that the artist needs to get a little bit more. More than that, we had set up a small agency within Galaxy that was going to help the artists find additional work. So additional work means getting paid through the adverts. Remember, I'm working in an advertising recording studio. So I was using the same artists to sing those adverts, and I was paying them from the adverts that we're getting.
Leonard actually tells a story where he made an advert and he couldn't believe the amount of money you paid him.
Yeah.
Like it was too much money.
Yeah. So I'm paying them, I'm using the same artists to pay them from the adverts. I'm also using the same agency to get them shows. So I had a lot of people calling me saying, hey, we want so-and-so to come to Chitungiza. We want so-and-so to come to Bindura. We want so-and-so to come to Jishavane. We want so-and-so to come there. And we would manage that whole process for the artist, get them accommodation, make sure that they're kept, they're fed. We drive them there, we transport them, we drop them off. We make the show. When we've gotten all that money, they get their big share because they were the performers. They get their share, we get our admin just to cover all of that, because we need it. And at the same time, we're running with a cartel that's selling CDs and cassettes. I was now also running a separate distribution system. Outside of making the cassettes, I then started employing the artists who were unemployed and gave them t-shirts and caps and bags. And I said, here's a bag of CDs. Here's a bag of cassettes. I want $100 from each cassette you sell.
So you can sell it for 200.
If you sell it for 200 or 300 or 400, that's your business. You make that money. Go.
Well, that's where people like Rocky, Discord, XQ,
Yes.
a lot of them were runners.
They
who
were runners selling cassettes, and that's how they got their,
work.
that's how they were getting their livelihood too, outside of waiting for the next time they're jumping into studio. So I had about 10, 15 runners, and I sent them to 15 parts of the country.
Who are some of these runners outside of the ones I
Oh my
mentioned?
gosh. I know the Honey Vibes guys. They were part of that. Yeah,
Lucius and
yes, the Honey Vibes guys were part of that.
Bantu Hunters?
Yes, the Bantu Hunters, they were part of that. And they all went into different parts of the country. So they sat every morning and decide which way, who's going where. So XQ would say, I'm going to Kariba. Rocky would say, I'm going to Beitbridge. Someone else is going to Mutare. Someone else is going to Jishavan. Someone else.
Bags of cassettes.
And they got bags of cassettes. And I just want the wholesale price. I want the price that I would get when I'm selling it to OK, when I'm selling it to...
No profit, no anything.
No.
So they'll place the profit they wanted.
They placed whatever profit they wanted. And some guys took 2-3 days there. And I would even give them the transport money. So it was not just go there. I gave them the transport money to go there. Not recoupable.
So here's some money so you can go make your own money.
Yeah. So I would give them the transport money to go there, and they would go there, do their thing, come back after 2-3 days and say, Mdara, I sold so many, we work a tally. How many did you sell? You sold 200 at this price, give me the cash. This is the cash that I need. Everything else is yours. So that's how the guys were making an income from that. And that machine in itself was more successful than us selling through Spin-Along, through express stores.
There were hefty markups there.
Yeah.
And percentages
Yes.
you were also getting.
And I was even saying to some of them that if you find people who are in the flea market business in those cities, sell to them so that the employment trickles down to that informal person. So if you've got 1 or 2 guys, like I remember, I think it was XQ and a couple an enemy, they were smart because they'd created a relationship with 2 or 3 people in that city. They would go and dump whatever they did.
Get a huge check.
get that money up front, leave.
Come back, get more cassettes.
Thank you.
Go back, dump again.
Dump again.
So-
So they chose to make a slightly less of a profit, but they knew that they were pushing 300-400 at a time.
And they're not
in one
staying
go.
long in
They're
those
not
places.
staying long
they're
in
not
the
spending
cities.
more money.
Thank you. So it was an employment creation, but I was using from a preference perspective, I was using my own artists.
The Galaxy Days are also instrumental in just establishing the 75% local content that later became the 100% local content.
Yes.
Through Professor Jonathan Moyo. Can you just take me through what happened for us to get to that period, to that moment?
Professor Moyo is my seventh and final king.
Right.
Very influential in shaping what we had noticed, and I had noticed, and many others had noticed, was a problem with airplay on Zimbabwean radio. I told you, 2 out of 10 songs were mandated by radio stations. We needed to increase that. I got summoned to Professor Moyo's office after he had heard about my work, and he needed to speak to me of how I could assist the Ministry of Information and the country in being able to get the message of land reform and use of land, and to find clever ways of getting the youth to understand how important it is to use and get land.
So basically you were called in to do strategic communication.
Yes, so I was called in to assist in just recording their adverts.
Oh, it was just a recording.
Yeah, that's what it started off with. Come, we like your quality of sound, we like the quality, you seem to know what the youth are thinking. Can you record our adverts? So I walked in there, did a business deal with the Ministry of Information to say, we can record your adverts, tell us what you want us to do.
Which adverts were these?
These are all the Rambai Makashinga
We did those.
projects. I did some of them, not all of them. I did some of them.
It's an iconic time in our history.
Yeah.
So.
But there were also some others that were around, just to, to promote education, phambili lokufunda.
We need
whatnot.
to talk about that record. Why can't I find that record anyway?
I don't know.
It
didn't belong.
It was such a dope record.
It didn't belong to us. We wrote it, we put it together, but we were just commissioned, just to spread the message of forward with education. Guys, stay in school.
That was a beautiful record.
Get educated, do this. And more so, I'm a believer of Africans owning land. I'm a believer of Africans using land. It's one of the things that makes me a farmer at this point in time. I am a true believer that we need to find ways of making use of that. So when that project came about, Moyo and I started talking initially just about their desire to get the message out to as many people that, guys, let's hold on, let's stay strong. We're doing a land reform program. When we do get some of the land back, please use it and plow and grow your own food. I am a believer of that concept, whether it comes from the Zimbabwean government or it comes from the South African government or any other African government. I truly believe in that model. I believe that Africans need to go back to the land to get back their wealth.
Right.
Furthermore, in our interactions as he was as we were trying to understand the strategy of what government was trying to do, we started talking about the industry. Professor Moyo, being a king in my books, loves music. He's a songwriter at heart himself. He's the one who wrote Sisonke, if you know the Sisonke jingle for ZBC jingle. Yes, he wrote that. He's written a lot of songs for Pax Afro and whatnot. So he's a songwriter himself.
Did he also write the Warrior song, Go Warriors?
Yes, he did, which I produced as well.
You produced that?
I produced that with Isaac Chirwa.
Right.
So I was actually like second fiddle, to be honest. Mr. Chirwa, the great producer, was the dawn in that. I mean, safe to say that that song in itself, because it went to #1, made me the only producer in Zimbabwe's history to have produced a #1 song in every single music genre that exists. I've produced the #1 song in house, in hip hop, in jazz, in blues, in R&B, in dance, in pop, in reggae, and also in Sungura, because of that particular song.
Record, yeah.
Yeah. So with the Score Warriors song, that song was written by Moyo, and Moyo in himself, like I say, a man who loves music, started lending an ear to some of the grievances that the industry was faced. And he was a simple man. He asks direct questions and he needed just direct answers. And he asked me, what's the biggest challenges that you're faced with in the music industry? I told him that we're faced with #1, piracy. There are too many CDs in the market that are blank, and everybody is copying our music and not paying us for the music that we're making. That in itself is a problem. He then said, what ideas do you have to curb that? I said, if you can increase the duty on blank CDs to a point where they are more expensive than the CD that's being manufactured by the original artist, it will stop people from copying CDs.
Because it's just too expensive.
Yes. And then he says, how do you then work it out? I said, no, you work it out by giving a license to the people who are allowed to manufacture. And they can always so they can pay the duty as they are bringing in the CDs. They manufacture for the people, so Grandma can pay the duty when it comes in, manufactures the CD locally at the right price, sells it at the right price, and then goes and gets a rebate.
Right.
From
Zimra.
Zimra, exactly. He thought it was a handsome idea. I then told him the second challenge is that we have a problem with studios and equipment for people who are servicing the music industry. So at the time I was trying to buy a studio of my own. I had the money to buy the studio, but it was going to cost me 4 times to bring it into the country and pay duty.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I can't buy my studio 4 times, because that means I'm buying 4 studios. So we need government to relax duty on that regulation. Yeah, so we had a stage now where Moyo, because he's understanding, he's listening, he's then allowing, okay, what we do with this thing. And that gave opportunities for video people to get cameras and whatnot, live bands to bring in the equipment, and guys were doing concerts and shows. Third one was, I then said, we're not getting enough airplay. We're competing for those 2 spots out of the 10 songs. Is there a way we can go Harvey's 50-50 with the international community? You know, let's raise it up a bit. And I even said to him, I know we don't have enough local content. Maybe we can share this with the other African artists, because Nigeria was also beginning to build its urban music scene. South Africa had a growing music scene. Zambia and Mozambique were also growing. So I said, maybe you could put us in that 50% and we can share that, and we can have the African 50% and then the local 50%. Can we increase that? And Prof had a very gracious ear. I think a man who also had shared a lot of the sentiments that I felt. And more than anything, I felt that, I even said to him, the arts industry is a great employment creator. The problem is that government is not putting enough concerted effort to allow the opportunities to be created. For instance, in South Africa, I stand corrected, but in South Africa, they pay R3.87 every time your song is played on radio. If you play more local artists, more local music, that money goes back to the artist. That artist can take that money and use that money to build production houses, to invest in supermarkets, to invest in different avenues of employment creation. If you take that R3.87 and you play Taylor Swift, R. Kelly, Beyonce, Boys to Men and Sizzla. That money leaves the country. It goes overseas and it never gets circulated locally. And that money is being taken from our radio stations, it's being taken from our television stations. So there was a strong need for us to increase the airplay because it allows us to keep the money that Zimura was collecting from ZBC.
So he increases it from 20% to how much at first?
I got the shocker because he calls me the night before and says, "Hey, Makhalima, I'm increasing this thing. A couple of changes that you'll see in the paper. Local music is going to go up to 75%. I was like, oh my God, like, why so much? That was my first thought. I was like, why? But at the same time, it was such a relief because I felt that so many artists are going to benefit from this. It's not even as much as people say that Galaxy benefited from it. Yes, we did. And many others to come. I mean, it's been several years since we've been there. Galaxy defunct officially in 2004. And having defunct in 2004, we that's close to 15 so years.
Wait, but what was you still there? 75% local content. What I don't get about that era is a lot of the DJs who were on 3FM at the time had issues with that.
Yes,
like, how dare you? And
no,
some of them actually left their jobs because they.
But having been a DJ myself, I could understand it because remember I was saying the DJ's reputation is built on the music that they play.
True.
Okay, so a DJ earns a lot more money outside of radio, not on radio.
True.
So
gigging and stuff.
On radio, he's only getting a name, building a name. But once he's got the name, that DJ gets shows, weddings, and other functions. And that's where he makes his money. If the music doesn't represent the brand or the caliber of product that he's giving, he doesn't get hired. So some obviously had a challenge with the fact that the local music, because the local music truly, there wasn't enough of it that was good enough.
True.
That's the truth. So we had to work as creators to match that standard. But we had already opened up avenues now. The avenues were, at least in my view, we've opened up for 75%. We've also allowed you to bring in your equipment duty-free. So you can now go and set up your little home studio without worrying about duty.
Well, that's why a lot of studios started mushrooming after that.
Yes.
Because everyone could afford to bring in equipment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we've opened up those things. So you've got no excuse. All you need now is you need to buy a computer, buy a keyboard, get some software. Now, there were a lot of young producers who came to me. Flash Gordon, he asked me for software.
You gave him software?
I gave him a whole bunch of software. MacD, I gave him a whole bunch of software. Take 5, I gave him a whole bunch of software. There were many others that I don't know of who have gone in different areas. For all I know, some of them are doing dancehall now, who knows. They all came and said, hey, Mdara, Kumbro software. Now this is software. So I gave them software. I gave them DVDs of software. And I didn't, for free. I said, take it, go. Some of them wanted to come and sit in studio. I used to have MacD coming and sitting in studio. Flash used to come and sit in the studio and watch me. Take 5 used to come and sit in the studio and watch me. So it wasn't really a problem because for me, we needed all these guys. We needed all these guys.
Because we need to produce.
Hello. We need the content out. We need the content out. The video guys are also just...
yeah, because I was going to ask about Rumbika Tedza in the moment.
Rumbika Tedza, Nakai Matema, Ben Mahaka. There were a lot of great guys who came and worked with us to create outstanding, good videos. And here again, we've opened up an opportunity, not just to make music videos, but an opportunity for you to make your own Studio 263, for you to make your own little productions.
Did you make the soundtrack to Studio 263?
No, that was done by David. David got the contract by himself.
Oh, that was David. You produced it by himself?
Yeah, he did that himself.
Okay.
That was David. Took all credit to him for that. But definitely, look, I mean, when Studios 263 came about, we went to see the guys because these are the same guys who were making music videos for us, you know, because I looked around. My job was really just to look around for the best of the best. So I worked out with a guy called Svelan, or Sif. He's the guy who did all our sleeves. and the covers for our CDs. Great designer. He did it part-time, but he's a fantastic guy. He had a fantastic guy, a fantastic designer, and paid him money. So, and when people came to me and said they wanted to get involved in the industry, some came and sang very badly, and I was like, this is not for you. What do you do for your career? He tells me I'm an accountant. What do we do? Okay, give me your number. When we need to do books and we need to audit a bookkeeper, I'm going to call you and you can do my books. You can't sing.
But you can work in the record business.
But you can work in the record business. And that's what I was hoping to create. And what we had done from a consumer standpoint was to make the audience aware that these people exist. When I discovered all the XQs, all the Kudzai Sevenzos, the Pastor Gs, the Rockies, all these different artists, I was trying to fill different pockets of different sounds to say, hey, guys, people are there. Hear the talent. Now, the talent is there. What do we do with it? Sad thing is that it was short-lived, at least for my era in that time. Why? And why a lot of people ask, why did I leave? Why did I stop? I'm a businessman. As much as I'm a creator, I always still have to look at the bottom line. I'm also answerable to the people who've invested in me. To my directors, to my direct partners, Mr. Taundi himself, my then wife, Mr. Chuma, these are the people, Mr. Chibanda, who had all put money and invested time and energy in. It was not right for us to continue the business when we were getting paid every 3 months. And why I say that, the way the industry works is that when you release a record and you put it out, after it's been manufactured, it has to go into the store. When it goes into the store, it has to sell in spin-along. It has to sell in wherever it's selling. Grammar, our distribution company, tallies up all the sales after a period of time.
Everywhere.
From everyone, whether you're selling in express stores, in Edgar's, in wherever.
Power sales.
Or even the flea markets.
Yes.
Do you understand? You tally it up and then you pay one check every 3 months.
Because you can't keep writing checks.
Thank
but
you.
at the time, inflation is
the
devaluing
inflation
the money.
is so high. So by the time you get your money,
you can't even make another 1,000 CDs if you wanted to.
Thank you. So in as much as I love the creative, the art behind creating the product, I still look at the business of it, because we get into it to feed our kids. We get into it to ensure that we grow so that we continue to do this.
Quality of life.
Yes. And more so, we want to make the money so that we can expand into other countries.
Well, you make better products.
Yeah. It's not easy for us to expand into a South Africa or into a Zambia if you don't have the actual capital to do that. And what was sad is to see Zimbabweans consuming the product for free, not taking in any consideration the work that's been put in by the artists.
And they don't understand the value.
And they don't understand the value of actually paying for the product. People
and what it does
sharing,
in the value chain.
People sharing this music via USB, copying CD after CD, putting it onto their laptops. That was what's sad. And yes, look, we may have gotten a good name out of it. The artists might have a popular name out of it, but a lot of them end up not making money. We wonder why certain artists are being buried and they're broke. And you wonder, but how is this guy so popular, but you're burying him and he's broke? It's because you, the consumer, you, the person who's listening to it, you don't have the courtesy to actually pay for it. Now, some say we struggle to know where to buy it. I understand that. That was another reason why I made a move to South Africa. It's because I wanted to find ways of being able to create a distribution model that is bigger, that is outside of this world, that is outside of just and confined to Zimbabwe. Because I noticed that as I came to South Africa had the same challenges where people loved the music, people were sharing the music, people were consuming it for free and not paying the musicians for it. And you find artists dying as paupers, And that's a mentality I urge people to refrain from, to find ways. I know you want to consume the music on YouTube at no cost, but by God, try to find a way of finding out where you can pay for this music.
And with YouTube now, subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, please.
Allow the artists to be in a position where they can be at least paid by advertising revenue.
And that's really been my heart. It's been my heart. If you look in and remember the story I told you of Willem and David, and where I got to a point where I was arrested, because I have a heart to see musicians being paid for their work, right? I have a heart to see myself being paid for the work, you see. So it's a disservice for everybody to enjoy Decibels in Akai, but not to put money in Decibels.
Wait, so you produced What Kind of World, the album?
No. I only did 2 songs with Decibel.
Nakai and
Chido.
Chido. Oh my God, classic, right?
I did Dino Mdondo, Chirangano Chedu,
With Willem Type
Makorogoto.
and Makorogoto.
Yeah.
What about on the
Star G?
Major Players project? How did you meet those boys?
Major Players, I met them briefly in a club because they came to me saying that we know you produce, please produce us. I refused to produce Major Players when I first met them because they sang in English. I totally refused. Then they told me that they had a sponsor. The sponsor was a guy by the name of Newton Madzika, the owner of Maze, a very well-known economist as well, just not take away credit for his most brilliant work in the country.
Right.
And they needed me to help pitch an idea to Newton. So I went to Newton's house in Helensville and I spent months on end going backwards and forwards, you know, trying to convince Newton to pull out money for these guys because I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to put Major Players money into Major Players singing in English. I figured out English doesn't sell. You know, we tried it with Kingpin.
From a businessman standpoint?
Yeah, from a businessman perspective.
Oh, so Kingpin was your guinea pig project?
Kingpin and Fasia. They were guinea pig projects because they sang R&B like it's R&B, hip-hop like it's our hip-hop. But then people liked it, but nobody was buying it. But everyone was buying Taliana.
They like the idea of it.
They like the idea of it,
but they will
still prefer buying it from America. So I knew that if you just become a Rick Ross who sings in Shona, you will make money.
Lots of it.
Tons.
And we can see it everywhere.
And we see it right now, even here in South Africa, the guys who are doing it. You know, Big Zulu, you see it with this Jiva.
No, we love Questa.
You look at Questa.
We love
You understand? Guys take it,
we love
they put it in the local language, it goes up. Casper Novest, perfect example.
And Casper sometimes bites an obvious drill record that's in the UK, that's popping in New York, but he's going to sell it
The
here.
point is that it's about communication, and a lot of artists in the world, especially in Africa, don't realize that they are a product first, not an artist. Because the minute you start going, I am an artist, I automatically move you out of the music business and I push you into what is called the music industry. There's a difference between being part of the music industry and part of the music business. The music business are people who are interested in making money. The music industry are people who are interested in being expressive and talking about all the wonderful things that artists should talk about. Amandla, let's get together, unity, let's save the whales. Let's
hug a tree.
Yes, let's hug a tree. Let's sing a song about that. Coronavirus, let's sing about that. Those are the people who are in the music industry.
We could talk for the whole night, but I have to ask this. So the word urban grooves has been used to describe Zimbabwean urban music, and it irks me because they think it's a genre of music. Mm-hmm. But because you're the man who actually produced Urban Grooves Volume 1, where the term
came from.
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
What is Urban Grooves?
So, the tagline, Urban Grooves. The honest truth is I actually don't know who came up with it. I don't know. I think it was Delani who came up with the word Urban Grooves.
Well, back then there was no Urban Grooves. I actually think that it probably formed the foundation for what became Urban Grooves, what is now Zim Dancehall, what is now the hip-hop scene in Zimbabwe.
A lot of the stuff I was actually also being introduced to it, I didn't even know I was singing Urban Grooves. But then when I'd go to this music is called Urban Grooves, and I would get introduced. So on the days that I went to the studio, I was actually learning quite a lot of stuff.
Urban Grooves is it's a modern sound. that's infused with your location and where you come from, with your story, with your ethnicity, your background. It can be any genre.
It can be hip hop.
So
It can be
a
dance.
lot of people tend to sit around and tell me that Zim dancehall is not part of urban grooves. Don't joke.
It is.
Don't play with us. We created Zim dancehall before it was even called Zim dancehall. It was there. And not even me. I won't even take credit of it because there were guys who were
Your
before
culture
me.
T's, your
Yeah.
major E's.
The sound system.
Our sound system culture was there.
Those
yeah.
guys were there, you know, and they were already doing it. The Major E, the Booker T's, and guys before that. When I introduced Sniper, you know, and brought him into the scene, we were replicating that. When Rasi I,
Oh, Rasi I on the future.
Ah,
Brother to Kingpin.
Brother Kingpin.
Still killing it until
King
today.
of dancehall.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, you put Rasi I with anybody, he will knock them out. Do you know what I'm saying? The point at the end of the day, if you want to sit here and have arguments about whether Zim dancehall is part of
Or
urban
Zim
grooves,
hip hop.
or Zim hip hop is not part of urban grooves, it is urban grooves because in it we were doing hip hop under the same banner called urban grooves.
You were doing R&B.
It's a collective name for urban music. That's what it is. The only difference is that in our part of the world, we do it in our language and we tell our stories. Urban grooves is being done in South Africa. It's called Kwaito. It's called Amapiano. It's called this. It's called Niger when you go to West Africa or Afrobeats. It's called something else in Latin America.
So urban groove.
It's all urban groove. So it's really a collective term to say that this music is not traditional groove. Because traditional groove is different.
Yes, it's there.
Yes, traditional groove is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are many people who've got their oshos and their ambiras, and that's traditional groove. Okay? Now, you can blend the worlds and create a contemporary groove. All right? Where you've now got the that you hear people like your P Square or even some of your West African artists are doing, where they're taking traditional rhythms. I think even Simba Tags has done that as well, where he's brought certain songs that have got a...
And it's in the contemporary space.
Yes, it's a contemporary space because it's an urban sound with a traditional rhythm that now is called contemporary groove. So let's not argue and try to get into semantics as to what is what. Urban grooves, and the definition of urban grooves is music that is modern, trendy, urban, being done by local people of that particular region.
Delani, when I started this whole interview, my hope was to meet 3 people. And these are the people that I met. I met Delani Makhalima, who was a son to a king and parents who comes from a people who played music around him, got him excited about what he was really passionate about, believed in him, and supported him throughout the whole journey. I met Delani, because when you got into the music business, at a certain point, people didn't say Delani Makhalima. They were just saying, there's this new producer called Delani. There's this new producer called Delani. We're going to Delani's, because he didn't have a name there. You're still trying to make one. Then I met Step Aside. Step Aside is then the genius who made us all believe that it can be possible. In meeting these 3 people, I just want to say thank you for the music, thank you for believing, and thank you for the sacrifice. I know probably a lot of times you don't hear this because people only look at it from a very musical standpoint, because that's the only thing we had. We didn't know the stories, we didn't know the context. Sure. We didn't know a lot of that. But thank you for the sacrifice. Thank you for believing, because some of us have careers because you believed.
Well, thank you so much.
Because you did it. And I hope we can rehearse the 7 kings again that are important to your career. Number 1 is your father.
Yes.
Number 2 is Kimbo Rogers, double
Yes.
K.
Yes.
Number 3 is Gilbert Mvavariro.
Yes.
Number 4 is Innocent Chuma,
Yes.
who is just a fantastic human being. Number 5 is Lennox Chibanda.
Yes.
And number 6 is the banker, the investment banker.
Elemon Tawundi.
Elemon Tawundi.
Yes.
And of course, number 7 is the good professor.
Yes.
Professor Jonathan Moyo.
Yes.
I appreciate you with all I have.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share the story. There's a lot more to the story that will obviously be read in detail in time. But it's been such an amazing ride. The 3 years that I spent in Zimbabwe building what was built has catapulted my life in different ways, established me in different corners of this continent, and being recognized even in this smallest pockets of the music industry as somebody who's contributed to the African music space. I currently sit on the executive committee of the adjudication board of the Africa Music Awards, and that's a project that we've been running seven years or so, and it's been phenomenal being part of that experience. Big shout out to Comrade Fatso. He knows what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. But more than that, it's just opened up my world, to working with different artists across the continent, in Uganda, in Kenya, in South Africa, Botswana, in Namibia, in Nigeria.
Everywhere, really.
Pretty much, yeah. And I've met the most phenomenal of people. And I believe in the music industry. I believe that there is hope for it, but it cannot work without the people. The people have to get a change in the way they consume it and start recognizing that, if it's something that you enjoy, pay for it. At least start having that kind of attitude. Africa, unfortunately, still has a long way to go. And unless we do that, we are constantly going to see artists rise and die, rise and die, rise and die. And you are always going to be asking yourself, why aren't our artists like the Americans, or why aren't they like the people overseas? Purely because we are not funding them, we're not financing them. And we finance them by buying their product. We keep retail companies alive, the TMs, the OKs, the spa shops open. We keep those, the pick and pays, alive because we fund them. So the only way, if you want to keep a certain artist alive, is you've got to fund them, you've got to buy their product, you've got to pay for what they do, go to their shows. Make sure, sow a seed if you must to the different artists. We've got phenomenal talent, and there's so much more to look forward to, I think, in the coming future. I'm so grateful for all the journalists and the radio DJs and the video jocks who have supported this movement. I think they are also the unsung heroes of our journey, of our stories. People who play our music, people who tell our stories in the newspapers and magazines, people who shoot our documentaries, and we need more of those so that, people can be made to understand what it takes to actually be where we are. But most of all, we thank the people as well, just the fans, just constantly enjoying the music, and we'll keep creating. We'll keep creating as best as we can. And yeah, for the record, Zimbabwe's been great for me. I'm gonna come back, I think.
That's a lie.
No, I'm gonna come back.
South Africa's been good to you, man.
No,
Delani.
but I'm gonna come back because I still need to beat my own record. I am the most successful producer in terms of hit records, pound for pound, in any genre. I've had the most number ones, the most songs in a chart in any genre.
I was waiting for when this Delani is gonna show up.
Yeah, well, he has to. Yeah,
He has to show up.
he has to show up.
Still my OG,
Yeah.
man. So thank you so much. Can I show you some of the people that have been helping me put this together? So behind that camera is a guy called Sbongseni Zulu. He was the producer. He was the director, my bad. Then there's Dennis, who was the producer, and of course there's my man. Brendan, yes, who's the sound engineer, who's been so phenomenal. And from the team, phenomenal. And from us, from Intentionally Daring, this is how it all started. Peace and
Thank
love.
you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.